Peace and love, y'all. It's your brother A.D.V.I.S, and we are here with another episode of What's the Word Wednesdays, Season 2, Episode 25. Now, as we usually do, I'm going to throw the topics for today within the comments, as well as pin it, as well as going to put up the logo for our background. So, with that, y'all, when y'all come in, let me know how y'all feeling, how y'all doing, and what's the word. Shout outs to the brother T. Lucas in the building. Good to see you, G. This is another legend, y'all. Please go check out T. Lucas on all streaming platforms, all up in the house, everything. So check out T. Lucas 301 on Instagram and everywhere else. As well as shout out to the brother Reflection Error. I see you in here, G. I don't know what this trend is, but he tweaking. I don't know what's going on with that. You got to inform me, all right? But good to see y'all up in here. Master J 2000 in the building too. Good to see you. So as y'all are coming in, let me know how y'all feeling, how y'all doing, and what's the word besides all this tweaking. And as y'all are doing that, shout outs to those who will be here watching this, as well as shout outs to those who will be watching this later, whether it's on Instagram or YouTube. If that is on YouTube, don't forget to comment, like, share, subscribe to your boy, and hit the notification bell for more videos to be coming out, whether in this format or any other ones. So please do, as we are trying to move towards 1,000 subscribers and beyond. So help a brother out and go ahead and subscribe. But with that, y'all, for today's episode, the topics we're going to be getting into, and once again, I'm going to do the show song and then we'll get into the first few topics. But yes, so the topics today that we're going to be getting into, we're going to be talking about current events like we usually do, and then we're also going to be talking about money talks, which I guess all y'all in here about some money talk want to hear what that's about. And then lastly, we're going to speak and talk about, is money the root of all evil? So once again, appreciate y'all for being in here. Shout outs to everyone that is in here, as well as disclaimer. If you want to come on, yes, this will be on YouTube. If you didn't hear, if I said earlier. So if you're willing to be on YouTube, you're more than welcome to join in. If not, you can stay within the comments and add your content and other ideas in the comments. But still appreciate your support, as well as you sharing back and forth in the comments. But with that, y'all, let's go ahead. Let's do the show song, and then we'll get to the first topic of these current events. I got a lot for y'all. So with that, let's get it. And let me know if y'all can hear me, and I sound well when it comes to, again, how I sound. If it's all good with the audio. You'll learn this song. If not, it's all good. But we gotta tell them like this. What's the word, y'all? What's the word? What's the word, y'all? What's the word? What's the word, y'all? What's the word? Tell them like, what's the word? What's the word? What you heard? We gotta know, yeah, what's the word? Once again, y'all, it's your brother A.D.V.I.S, and we are here with another episode of What's the Word Wednesday, Season 2, Episode 25. So, we are here and back in effect with another episode with more information and more things to tell and talk about, y'all. So, again, appreciate everyone being here, taking up your time and supporting, as well as for those watching now and later. We'll get into the spiel of that later on towards the end. But for today's episode, again, we have these three topics. We're going to be going over current events. So I'm going to give you what I've been seeing and hearing news-wise. If y'all have any, please throw them in the comments and share along. Because the more information and news that we know and we're informed about, the better we are able to figure out our next steps and plans for whatever is going on. Second, we're going to get into the topic about money talks. Wherever way we want to take it, we will take it. Open for discussion and folks to come in. And lastly, we're going to be talking about, is money the root of all evil? Because we speak about it so much And it is so vital and important in the system that we live in. So let's talk about this, either from a biblical sense, system standpoint, wherever it is. But that's what we got for today. Once again, if y'all have anything, please throw it in the comments. I appreciate your interaction as well as your input. This is what this is for. We are here as a community, so please share what you have so that we can all know. But with that, let's get into these news topics. So for today, y'all, what I have for y'all, of course, as things continue to move with the pandemic, I always got to keep giving updates on vaccines and shots. So we got a lot of updates in health again, as well as we have some updates concerning Afghanistan and the Taliban. And then we also have some, you can say, random updates, not say pop culture, but we have one random update just to share for those folks who like content of this nature, and you'll find out later. But with that, those are the three things. Let's get into it. So, first thing I wanted to talk about, and this is in terms of, again, the virus and things. This news article comes from NPR, and headline reads, Delta Airlines is going to start charging unvaccinated employees $200 per month. Again, Delta Airlines is going to start charging unvaccinated employees $200 per month. Now, when it comes to this, again, 2 paragraphs I read and we're out. So if you want to find this information, NPR is your place to look for that information. So, with that, let's see what it says. We have, it reads, Delta Airlines will charge employees on the company health plan $200 a month if they fail to get vaccinated against COVID-19, a policy the airline's top executives say is necessary because the average hospital stay for the virus costs the airline $40,000 or $40,000. CEO A.D.V.I.S.S Bastian said that all employees who have been hospitalized for the virus in recent weeks were not fully vaccinated. So that means it can be either unvaccinated or they likely could have gotten one dose. Multiple ways to interpret, but again, just look and we'll listen. The airline said Wednesday that it also will stop extending pay protection to unvaccinated workers who contract COVID-19 on September 30th and will require unvaccinated workers to be tested weekly beginning September 12th, although Delta will cover the costs. They will have to wear a mask in all indoor company settings. Delta stopped short of matching United Airlines, which will require employees to be vaccinated starting September 27th or face termination, basically lose the job. However, the $200 monthly surcharge for that health coverage, which starts in November, may have the same effect. Now, there's more in this article. Like I said, 2 paragraphs and we're out. But overall, in this article, is saying to be able to fight against and to fully protect folks, as well as not cost more unnecessary monies to be spent in the company, they will start charging those who do not get vaccinated an extra $200 on their health coverage. And if not, it will grant whether they're going to stay or they're going to go. But that's the first update, just for those, just to let y'all know. What's going on, nephew? Good to see you in here. So, next one we got for y'all, in the midst of all of this, if y'all have not heard or have y'all seen, this is a title as well as an article coming from the New York Times. And the article reads, in Florida, pandemic is worse now than it has ever been. So, what's going on, Chris? Good to see you in here. What's the word? Y'all let me know. What is the word? So now, in Florida, pandemic is worse now than it has ever been. 2 paragraphs, and we're out. Article reads, more people in Florida are catching the coronavirus, being hospitalized, and dying of COVID-19 now than any previous point in the pandemic, underscoring the perils of limited public health measures as the Delta variant rips through the state. So Florida is going through it, according to New York Times article. This week, 227 virus deaths were being reported each day in Florida on average as of Tuesday, a record for the state and by far the most in the United States right now. The average for new known cases reached 23,314 a day on the weekend, 30% higher than the state's previous peak in January, according to New York Times database. Across the country, new deaths have climbed to more than 1,000 a day on average. And last one, and hospitalizations in Florida have almost tripled in the past month, according to the federal data, stretching many hospitals to the breaking point. So much is going on in the hospitals. It's not enough. The surge prompted the mayor of Orlando to ask residents to conserve water in order to limit the strain on the city's supply of liquid oxygen. Interesting. Which is needed both to purify drinking water and to treat COVID-19 patients. That's interesting. I don't know much about how that is. I might want to look more into that. But that's that for this article. Just know right now, Florida is in a big midst of it, having more cases now, more than ever since January, as well as needing to limit their water supply just to help with the pandemic going. So again, make sure that you're doing what you need to do to keep yourself healthy within the same, state of mind and body, as well as keeping those around you healthy and safe. So take the precautions that you need to. All right, next article. Now we're getting more into the shots. We're talking about what this is happening, where things are happening, unvaccinated people, and what their consequences will be for not getting it in certain places. Now let's get to talking about updates on these shots. First, we have one coming from MSN, but specifically from CNN. Article title reads, Israeli study finds that COVID vaccine much safer than catching the virus. And the thing is, we'll find out specifically what COVID vaccine they're talking about. But again, Israeli study finds COVID vaccine much safer than catching the virus. 2 paragraphs, and we out. Article reads, a large study involving close to 2 million people in Israel shows that the Pfizer/BioNTech coronavirus vaccine slightly raises the risk of heart inflammation, swollen lymph nodes, and shingles. But it also finds that the COVID-19 infection raises the risk of heart inflammation even more. Plus, it raises the risk of blood clots, health or heart attacks, and other deadly events. Make sure read in between the lines with all of this. Article. It's the first large study to compare the risk of vaccinations versus infection head-to-head in the same population during the same time. And it shows the risk of infection far outweighs any risk from the vaccine, the researchers said. It is in this study in a nationwide mass vaccination setting, the BNT 162 B2, which is coded to be the Pfizer, but in their particular case, that's the name that they're using. It's something very similar to it. Vaccine was not associated with an elevated risk of most of the adverse events examined. Dr. Rand Bowser of the Clavlet Research Institute in Tel Aviv and colleagues wrote in their report, published in the New York Journal of Medicine. So there's more to this article that goes in depth to what this study does and what it's been doing, but it is basically comparing head to head you not getting the vaccine and what that risk is versus you getting the vaccine and what is the slight risk, the pros and cons. So this was a study done on 2 million folks, so within Israel, and this is the findings that they've gotten. For more, again, check CNN, and an article is Israel study study finds COVID vaccine much safer than catching the virus. It's the headline there. All right, now we're moving next. We're talking about the differences between getting it and having it. Now, in all of that talk, I do have more other things. This next one I really want to talk about too, because we talked about it last time. And again, this one article comes from NPR, and the headline reads, COVID booster shots are coming. Here's what you need to know. Okay? Article reads, health officials are preparing to roll out COVID-19 booster shots in the United States this September. So looking towards that in September, y'all. According to a plan announced August 18th, so that was almost about to be a week ago, almost. I might be off a few numbers, or no, that is exactly a week ago. Don't quote me on it. All U.S. adults who received 2 doses vaccine, whether whichever one it was, by Pfizer or Moderna, will be eligible for an additional jab of the vaccine 8 months from when they got their second one. Now, you may ask, okay, why we talk about these boosters? So, last time on the show last week, we talked about how there's been studies that have shown that over time, the efficacy and the effectiveness of a lot of the vaccines have lessened over time from percentages that used to be within and near the 90s to roughly around either 80s, 70s, and even lower into the 60s. So the booster is to help recirculate and raise that percentage back up again to help with preventing hospitalizations, death, and any effects from the virus itself. So that's why it's such a push right now with the boosters. But shouts out to the brother West Coast Ninja in the building. Good to see you. What's the word? As well as Kundan. Good to see you in here. What's the word? Let me know how y'all doing, how y'all feeling, and if y'all got any news, throw it in the comments. All right. Next part in this article, and we'll move on. These booster shots are free. President Biden said in remarks Wednesday afternoon, encouraging people in the U.S. to get the shots when it's their turn. It will be easy. Just show your vaccination card, get a booster. It will make you safer and for longer. And it will help us end the pandemic faster. So, just know they're coming. There's more, again, like I said in this article. But again, 2 paragraphs and we're out. And we will continue with even more to talk about, okay? But just know, boosters are coming in September, especially for those who took it back way when, authorization, use, and everything, yeah. Let's look at these comments and then we'll go to the next article. Yes, good to see you in here. It said, no one is prone to diseases. Even pride and ego is a disease itself. I hear you on that. You can't get away from anything, but you can definitely put yourself in the best shape to combat. We don't talk much about our natural immunities because we are downplaying it due to more surges in technology, and we're relying on technology to lead us more forward and forgetting the human aspect of the side of what we can already do within our bodies. A lot of the technology and stuff that we've got has come from, whether it's come from the mind. The mind is literally the laptop is basically the whole imagination of what your mind does. That's basically what the laptop is. So a lot of the parts of the human body have been created through technology, and we're forgetting that human aspect. But I'm not saying we only rely on the human aspect. There's a way to use both technology and our natural aspect for things to improve health even further. But what are we going to do? We'll figure out, we'll see how the intentions and the intent goes further on as we look more into society and health and all this set to be done. But let's see. Boom. So yeah, glad the booster shot is going to be free. Yes, it is. I already had that, brother. I just talked about that already. The airline is basically charging like a fine to unvaccinated folks. Yes, I just talked about that, bro. I already did. We're going back here. OnlyFans reversed this ban for sex. That's basically the random article I have. So now y'all know. We're going to talk about that in a bit. As well as furrows. No one is prone to diseases or illnesses. You know, there's people who are heredity passed down through family that are, because it's in the DNA. But that's a whole nother different story. But your likability to get different diseases and things determines the way that you set up yourself and your life when it comes to addressing things. We're not going to get too much in this spiel. We can talk about that another time, but I appreciate y'all's comments and everything that you got in here, as well as Pfizer vaccine is finally FDA approved. I'm going to talk about that as well. So appreciate y'all in the comments. Let's keep these moving. All right. Next article. This comes from NBC News. The headline reads, COVID vaccine holdouts have no more excuses for not getting their shots. Heard that. Again, NBC News, COVID vaccine holdouts have no more excuses for not getting their shots. Article reads, as of last week, in spite of an extremely high level of confidence among policy officials and public health experts that any of the 3 COVID vaccines with emergency use authorization, which means is an experimental drug, are safe and effective, about 70 million adults in the U.S. remain unvaccinated, as well as nearly 50 million children under the ages of 12 who aren't eligible for inoculations or shots. Continuing. But now the Food and Drug Administration, FDA, eagerly anticipated announcement Monday that Pfizer BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine has been granted full formal approval for anyone 16 or older. Vaccination holdouts have much less of a pretext to refuse to get a shot, and we may now witness rapid progress in upping the country's vaccination rate. Presumably, many people will be relieved to know that the federal government is fully confident in the vaccine's effectiveness and safety. I will challenge that. And even if this doesn't change the feelings of those who oppose vaccines, it should pave the way for more institutions to mandate their use. I want to read this other paragraph because it's very vital, and then I will touch back on a point where I was saying that I would challenge. Full approval is not an insignificant upgrade in the status of any drug or vaccine. Getting this golden standard designation requires more rigorous and longer monitoring of side effects and substantially more analysis of efficacy under the Emergency Use Authorization, or EUA. The Pfizer vaccine was granted in December. We're talking about FDA scientists reviewing hundreds of thousands of pages of vaccine data gathered from more than 40,000 participants in human trials to make sure full approval is warranted. So, from this article, y'all, is letting know those folks who are still hesitant now should not be hesitant, because one of the vaccines out of the 4 and 5, the fifth one's still having its issues, which is called Novavax, if I'm correct. Don't quote me on it, but I think it's Novavax. That you can use and you should be looking at, because now it's FDA approved. So you should go ahead and you get these things. Now, and I get to the points in the comments. When I go to that point where it says that they're confident in the vaccine's effectiveness and its safety, yes, they can. But I will say this. If many of you do not know, there is a U.S. code, and it's the U.S. code 42, and it is 300 AA22. Even if things are FDA approved, or for at least companies that bring out vaccines and other different things, they are free of all liability. So that basically means, as much as you want to, anything vaccine related of injuries or possible death, you cannot sue. They are not liable. So I'm not wishing that on anybody, but this is just, again, another thing that I wanted to at least combat. When they say that they're fully confident, if people are fully confident, I would go ahead and say, well, if you really back the product, then there should not be a restriction when it comes to those folks if something does come up and happen. So that's just another retort, but I do want to read at least the general rule that it is from the U.S. code concerning this. So, from the code, it is called, I think it's from paragraph 300 AA22 in the U.S. code. It's called the Standards of Responsibility. The general rule, it says, except as provided in subsections B and C and E, state law shall apply to civil action brought for damages for a vaccine-related injury or death. So basically, 1, no vaccine manufacturer shall be liable in a civil action for damages arising from a vaccine-related injury or death associated with the administration of a vaccine after October 1st, 1988. If the injury or death resulted from side effects that were unavoidable, even though the vaccine was properly prepared and was accompanied by proper directions and warnings. So, regardless, there's the liability is waived from folks at Pfizer, Moderna, and those bringing out vaccines and drugs due to this U.S. code. I just wanted to bring that up, not saying anything against it, but that's one way to say, like, yo, we really feeling, we believe in the product and this is what it is. But it is, it is what it is there. But I did want to share with y'all too, and we'll continue as in another spot what this code is real quick, so y'all can see what I'm talking about, if y'all can tell. So if y'all want to know, it's hard to kind of see, but that's part of the public code that it is there. As well as, if y'all want, there's also this spot that people don't know about, but it's called A.D.V.I.S.S, which is the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System. So if anything were to happen, y'all, that is one place where folks go ahead and put their happenings with some negative effects when it comes to the vaccine, because it happens. It's not very, very, and I say likely, not many happens, but there's been data that's been showing there's been a lot of issues going on lately, but I'm not going to share all of that with y'all, but just take that into consideration. Whether you've got it or you haven't gotten it, just know, again, we talk about safety versus risk. Just being able to weigh out both the pros and cons and the risk and how that works and affects for you in your own particular life. So just know that. Moving forward. Did y'all know that now, since Pfizer has been approved and their shot has been approved, it actually has two different types of vaccines. One of them has been named, and I butchered the name, so I'm not going to even try, but I'm going to show you a video, as well as they still have their regular experimental drug under the EUA. So they have one that's been approved, but then they also still have their one for the COVID still under the emergency use authorization for those minors that's under, I think, 15 to 12, between that range. So it has a weird name. I just don't know how to pronounce it properly. So I'm going to show y'all a video, as well as y'all can give me your thoughts on the name or anything, of course, of that nature. And this is Pfizer once again. So before I do that, let me go back through these comments and see what we got going on. Let's see. We got in here, but vaccination holdouts have already moved the goalpost by saying FDA approval is not as valuable as they originally valued. Yes, OTC vitamins are not FDA approved either. Yes, glad I got Pfizer. I was bummed I didn't get additional superpowers, but that's a bit reassuring. Very funny, man. Very funny. But now they're saying alcohol and cigarettes are also FDA approved. Yes, a lot of that stuff is. Look it again. You have to look and find all the information. There's varying information to say that FDA approvals are, safe and effective, but you cannot guarantee to say that it is fully safe and effective, because there's always going to be someone having some type of adverse effect. There's no way to say all of this is not harming anybody. It is, as well as cigarettes and alcohol and other different foods that have been approved. Even the stuff that was going on with Monsanto's, that's a whole nother different thing. I will not say, algorithm might trip me out, whatever, doesn't matter at this point. But there's the pros and cons of what is approved and what isn't. So does it hold weight as of now? Y'all be the judges. Supervisor, I haven't lost my parkour abilities yet, but yes, we'll see. Yep. Vaccines don't prevent infection, but simply speed up recovery or reduce the likelihood of death and hospitalizations. Exactly. Yes, I'm not going to even say its name, but yes, it's supposed to be the name from COVID, mRNA, made to sound like community. Yeah, there's a few other ones. Don't worry. It's going to show in the video. So with that, y'all, here, I'm gonna play the video. Y'all let me know if you can hear it. I'll just put y'all on the screen so y'all can end up seeing it. But let's see. Let's go for it. Let's push it up this way. Let's turn this volume up. And let's get it, y'all. Let's see.
It doesn't exactly roll off the tongue.
Community.
Can you say it?
Community?
Can you spell it?
Community is the new name.
It was so much easier to just say Pfizer's COVID vaccine, but now that the FDA has given it full approval and included how to pronounce it, prepare to hear the name.
What's up with community?
Twitter pretty much trashed it. They shouldn't even be allowed to name their pets. Sounds like a Soviet secret police branch.
Community, which sounds more like a drunk person trying to say community. You can't arrest me. I'm a valued member of the community.
Well, actually, Pfizer says the name is a mashup of the terms COVID-19, mRNA, community, and immunity. Seth Meyers joked the creators must have been smoking something.
So it actually, makes sense, dude.
The name was dreamed up by the Brand Institute, a major player in naming pharmaceuticals. It ain't easy. The FDA has 42 pages of guidelines for naming drugs, many of them aimed at preventing mix-ups with other drugs. The Brand Institute told CNN it takes time for the names to be adopted by the general public, though some are easier than others. Viva Community. Some imagine Don Draper of Mad Men making the pitch.
What was that?
That was the best I could do.
The name for the Moderna vaccine, also created by the Brand Institute, is Spikevax.
Oh, that's a lot better.
Experts in naming, like Mike Carr, say the most important thing is memorability.
If the name will stick inside of your target's head.
And Carr says community fails.
I just don't think it would even get a C.
He proved his own point by not quite managing to remember it.
Communarity? Did I get that right?
Nope.
I don't think there's much else to do here, but call it a day.
Call it a day, but don't call it
Community?
Genimos.
Community?
CNN.
Maybe?
New York.
So yeah, y'all. So that's the new name for Pfizer. Folks is making fun of it. You know, they're doing all they are with it. But when I'm speaking of there being two different ones, there's this one, which I'm not going to even try. Comerity, whatever it may end up being. There's still one that is still under the authorization, again, use. That's for minors and those under, since we cannot still vaccinate children that is under 12 and beyond that point. But again, y'all let me know your thoughts about the name itself. I particularly have no really says when it comes to the name itself, you know, but that's usually what happens when things get approved. So it has a name when it comes to that. So we're gonna die. I don't know. You know, I can start trying to break down the name, but it already told you in its name. It has COVID-19. It has the mRNA gene little spike that it said messenger that's in there for the RNA. It has community and immunity all mashed together to make that word. So it's interesting. But let's continue. We got some more so we can finish this off. Next article's from CNN. And it reads, Moderna completes submission for full FDA approval of COVID-19 vaccine. Pfizer seeks approval for the booster shot. So, with what we was talking about, Pfizer's already had theirs approved. Now Pfizer's trying to get their booster shot approved. So that means their 2-dose vaccine has been fully FDA approved, but not the booster shot, because booster shot's supposed to come in September. We'll figure this out. As well as Moderna finally filed for them to be FDA approved as well. So let's read this article, 2 paragraphs, and we're out. So Moderna announced Wednesday that it has completed its submission to the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, FDA for short, for full approval of its COVID-19 vaccine for people ages 18 and older, while Pfizer and Biotechnic announced that they begin submitting data for their full FDA approval of a 3rd dose of their vaccine, which is the booster shot. So the differences between these, Moderna's is 18 and up, and Pfizer's is actually 16 years and up. So those are the differences when it comes to the ages that it ranges from. Now, continuing. Moderna said it requested priority review from the FDA. The company begins submitting data for its biologic license application, or BLA, to the FDA in June. So they've done this in a while back. We're in August, about to move on to September. So they did this back in June. This BLA submission for our COVID-19 vaccine, which we began in June, is an important milestone in our battle against COVID-19 and for Moderna, as it is the first BLA submission in our company's history. Moderna CEO Stephanie Bancel said in the statement. Now, it says here, I'm gonna put this last paragraph again. We're out. The Moderna vaccine is currently available under the emergency use authorization for people ages 18 and older in the United States. Moderna has also filed for the FDA for an emergency use authorization for its vaccine in people age 12 and older. So there's still, again, different authorization uses as well as full FDA approval when it comes to vaccines. So there's different ones and levels that are fully approved and are still emergency use, which again, if y'all don't know, emergency use authorization of a particular drug that is still in trials and clinical trials is still considered an experimental drug. So that's still going on in the air as well. But this is it from this article. If y'all having questions, throw it in here, but just know Moderna has submitted theirs and that they're going to continue with it. Now, moving forward. Something real quick, since we're going to forget, okay, we talk about Pfizer and Moderna, but what about Johnson & Johnson? Well, according to CBS News, there's a study that has been done that Johnson & Johnson's COVID vaccine highly effective against the Delta variant in particular. So I'll read this short one paragraph and that is it. So, paragraph reads, according to a study of nearly 480,000 health workers out of South Africa, the single-dose vaccine for Johnson & Johnson is up to 71% effective at protecting against severe illness and hospitalization from the Delta variant, and it is 96% effective at preventing death. Dr. Brian Hees joined CBSN to discuss the latest data and its impact on vaccination efforts. So there is a video that comes along with this, but I'm not going to watch the video because it is almost 6-7 minutes long. So we are going to pass through on it, but just know that if you're worrying about Johnson & Johnson, for those Johnson & Johnson folks, just know that they're saying that specifically for the Delta variant, forget about the Alpha, the Beta, and the other ones, but it specifically targets the Delta variant at this effectiveness. So keep that in mind, y'all. But all right, that's enough COVID news. We have 3 more articles and we'll be done, y'all, and we'll move to the topics for today. Appreciate y'all's being patient with me. Now, got an article coming out from NPR, and this again, like I said, is addressing what's going on in Afghanistan. So, article from NPR, it reads, less than week away to the deadline, as many as 1,500 Americans are still in Afghanistan. 2 paragraphs again, and we are out. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken said as many as 1,500 U.S. citizens are still not out of Afghanistan ahead of the August 31st deadline. So, for those who don't know, Taliban is taking over Afghanistan. Kabul, I think specifically, quote me, let me know if I'm incorrect. And what is going on now is the president has made a request and effort to start pulling out as many Americans out of Afghanistan before the date that they said, which was August 31st. So we'll see what that deadline is, because if not, the Taliban says that they will respond, and we don't know which way that will be, when it comes to the response. Now, next, speaking at a news conference, Blinken said government officials are in touch with approximately 500 of those that are remaining in the Taliban-controlled country, and that officials are providing them with instructions on how to reach Kabul's airport safely. For the remaining roughly 1,000 contacts that we have who may be Americans seeking to leave Afghanistan, we're aggressively reaching out to them multiple times a day throughout multiple channels of communication to determine if they are still want to leave. He said, noting that some may turn out to not be American citizens. Over the last 10 days, the State Department has evacuated roughly 4,500 U.S. citizens. So, that is what's going on right now. in Afghanistan, as well as the U.S. efforts to get out American citizens as well. Now, a follow through to that, and this is coming from Fox News, and it's a video that goes along with it. Former interpreter, Taliban, so former interpreter for Americans, say that Taliban publicly executing Afghans who side with the U.S. So, quick short summary says, a former U.S. military interpreter says the Taliban have begun executing U.S. allies away from Kabul where there is no media attention. So, just know that it is super sticky and very, very tragic of what's going on right now out in Afghanistan, and there is more and more that will continue to come out, but just wanted to update you on those state of affairs. Now, if y'all have anything, please continue to throw it in there. Now let me check these comments as we're going through here. Yes, so goofy. That's interesting regarding Johnson & Johnson, but I don't trust that company at all. I agree with you. If y'all look into Johnson & Johnson and you look at their long laundry list of not only lawsuits, but also there is recently a recall of products that are under Johnson & Johnson, a lot of the sunscreens and other different products that have known carcinogens within them. If y'all don't know what a carcinogen is, it's basically a substance that can cause cancer that's found in these products. You can look all of that up. Like I said, I mean, you could literally just type in Johnson & Johnson's sunscreen or something has carcinogens. I think it's Avenu, if I'm correct. I don't know how to pronounce the names, but there's a few reasons why. But again, everything with a grain of salt. Don't take what I have. Do what you need to and find information. But if you like to know, always hit me up. I send it to you. Yes, Taliban take over. Afghan president fled. That's right. And government collapsed. There we go. The Taliban leader was released from Pakistani jail in 2018 at the request of Trump. So again, appreciate the reminder. Kundan, thank you so much. But yeah, that's what's going on. Now, for the last one that some folks is like, oh, okay, this is going to be interesting. But I really just was going back and forth with it. This is an article coming from NPR. This has to be in the business section. Article reads, reversing a planned ban, OnlyFans will allow pornography on its site after all. So for those who's not keeping up with it, OnlyFans, y'all know the website. People make fun of it. I should make them OnlyFans, where there's a lot of explicit adult content, as well as there's other content of cooking, things in different other cases where there's musicians and artists on there too for monthly subscriptions. But there was a decree earlier on that the CEO of OnlyFans out of London, if I'm correct, said that they were going to stop all sexually explicit content past October. But now it looks like they're reinstating that and they're going back against the ban, and now there's no ban. Let's read 2 paragraphs and we are out. All right. So the website OnlyFans is reversing a planned ban on pornography and other sexually explicit content. Just days ago, the London-based company said that starting in October, it would block sexual explicit material in response to concerns from banks and other financial services companies that enable transactions on a subscription service. It didn't name the companies. But on Wednesday, OnlyFans said it will continue allowing adult content, which is a large part of its business after all. We have secured assurances necessary to support our diverse creator community and have suspended the planned October 1st policy change, the company tweeted Wednesday morning. OnlyFans stands for inclusion, and we will continue to provide a home for all creators. Now, I gotta continue, but we'll stop it right there. But just know, if you delve into that stuff, you delve into that stuff. If you don't, then it has no concern really much to you. The reason why is because OnlyFans have grown in popularity due to what has been going on with the pandemic, and for women and other folks to find other ways, because at the end of the day, we know sex sells. So If you can go ahead and commodify yourself in that particular way, all means, there it is there. And that's all I have for that. If y'all have anything, y'all can throw it in the comments. But that is it for the news section. It was a little bit longer, but there's a lot more information I wanted to share and give to y'all. I mean, there's more, but we'll stop it and leave it here. So, with that, if y'all have any more, please throw it in the comments. And now we are moving to our next part and our next topic for tonight, which we're going to be talking about money talks. And what do you mean, money talks? We're going to take it wherever y'all want. So folks who want to come in, you are more than welcome to come in. Just remember that this does go on YouTube. So if you're not comfortable with me on screen, on camera, please, you're more than welcome to stay in the comments and share from there. Now, when it comes to talk about money talks, let's get the basics again. So I'm going to give y'all definitions on money. We're not going to give definition on talking, but give you definition about money. And yes, I'm not talking about the movie. Yes, with Chris Tucker. And if I'm correct, don't get me wrong. Is Charlie Sheen? I might be completely wrong. But yes, I'm not talking about the movie itself. Okay? I'm not doing movie reviews. I'm talking about in the sense of money talks. What it can do and what it can provide. So if y'all want to come on, please do. But like I usually do, let's give some definitions to it and let us delve into this topic. Now, when we're talking about money, there's multiple definitions. This is coming from Webster's dictionary in particular. And we have a few of those definitions I'm going to. Now, first one. Something generally accepted as a medium of exchange, a measure of value, or a means of payment. What's going on? Good to see you in
Hello.
here. What's the word?
I can only see you halfway now. What happened?
What is going on? Hey, yo. Hold on. Let's go ahead. Head back out real quick. Let me take off this picture,
Okay.
and then I should be good. That's interesting. See, again, Instagram changing and doing so much stuff. Boom. We'll stop sharing. Now it's your voice. Now I got to get used to this whole setup. All right. Kundan, make your way back in here. Go ahead. That was pretty funny. I tripped out too. I'm like, yo, I can barely see myself at the top. All right. Well, with all of that being said, y'all, again, for money, we have that exchange, a measure of value, either if it's or a means of payment. There we go. What's going on? See, now it's working. What's good, Chris? What's the word? How you doing? Good to see you. I can barely hear you though. Let me see. Let me turn myself up a little bit. All right. Say something again.
Hello.
Yeah. See, I can hear Kundan very well, and I can hear that fan. Um,
I
but
turned up the fan.
yeah. See, now we good. We're good.
So
All right.
when
So
you do
we're good.
the definition, I just have a request. I was wondering if you can look up not only the definition of money but also currency, because
Yes.
I want
Oh.
to talk. Because I want to talk about that. Yeah.
Oh. Okay. All right. For sure.
Yeah.
I definitely can do that on both
Yeah.
sides there.
Yeah.
Let me go ahead and make another one here, but let's continue and I will give you that for currency. So, first definition we got for money from Webster's dictionary. Shout out to Chris saying Webster's got all the dictionaries of the numbers of the definitions. But again, we got the first one talk about basically it being a measure of value or a means of payment. Officially coined or stamped metal currency, newly minted money. So basically money of account. So money that is there in account. Shout outs to the brother Joe Bruce in the building. Another legend out there in Rhode Island. Check him out, y'all. Joe Bruce. Another one for money, paper money. Handed the bank, a teller, a wad of money. So paper money. Second definition on here, it says wealth recognized in terms of money. Another one, a form of denomination of coin or paper money. Fourth, first, second, and third place winner. Usually used in the phrases in the money or out of the money. So I guess prize money is what they're trying to say. You win something. And then the fifth one, and we'll stop there, is a persons or interest possessing or controlling great wealth. Very interesting definition for money. I was
Wait,
not expecting that, but
they
okay.
define the money as a person as well?
It
That's
just says
interesting.
person. Yeah, it said person. Let me read that
Huh.
again. Read that again. It says persons or interests possessing or controlling great wealth. Is it there right there? So they're saying
Wow.
politicians. So the example that has politicians at the beck and call of money.
Ah.
It does go hand in hand, right?
Yeah.
It is right there.
Okay,
Yeah,
guys.
Chris, I can still barely hear you. I can still barely hear you. All right. Now, at the request for Kundan, let's also look at the definition for currency. First one we have a circulation as a medium of exchange. So circulating, we know current is going
Mm-hmm.
around. B, general use, acceptance, or prevalence, a story gaining currency. C, the quality or the state of being current. Second, something such as coins, treasury notes, and banknotes that is in circulation as a medium of exchange. Paper money in circulation. So the keyword circulation. A common article for bartering furs were once used as currency. So bartering is another form that is talking about within currency. And then D, a medium of verbal or intellectual expression is what currency is. Now, those are all the ones that they gave. I mean, there's more. It gives you history and stuff at the bottom, but I'm just going with just the definition itself. But that's what we have there. So good to see you on here, Kundan. What's the word? And let me know what are your thoughts when we talk about money talks before I interject with any other questions.
I mean, I have a lot to say because in about 2 or 3 years ago, I even published an article on the 9 different types of currency systems, and I did a free webinar for Black and Brown and Indigenous people for us, and I did
Yes.
it free because I felt like at that time that was basically like my cause. I felt like that was knowledge that we needed to know without having to pay for it, that we just should know it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's the reason why I asked for the differences. In the dictionary, it's not, when I heard the two definitions, it almost sounds exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
But in actual practice, like in actual like lived experience, I feel like it's actually two different things. And
Elaborate.
so currency is a type of money. So if it was a set, right? Let's think in terms of Venn diagrams or set theory, right?
Okay.
So if there was a set of things with which we store and exchange value, right?
Mm-hmm.
Money is basically the largest set. It's the overall set of everything.
Mm-hmm.
And currency is a smaller set within that larger set. So
Okay.
currency is not the only type of money possible or even in existence, really. But it is the main type of currency of money right now in the world, in majority of the global, populace.
Yeah.
And that is the greatest, I feel like even more than, in some ways, even more than things like racism and sexism, at least in the last 500 years, like it's like the greatest tyranny perpetrated on the populace, because
Yeah.
it is the power used to perpetrate racism, sexism, ableism, etc. It
Okay.
is the thing, it is the fuel, right? But it's
Mm-hmm.
not money itself, it is currency, a type of money, right?
Yeah.
So to me, the difference is money is a store of value
Okay.
whose value can stay the same or increase over time.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas currency is almost the opposite. It's a medium of exchange
Mm-hmm.
deliberately designed to lose value over time.
Hmm.
Okay.
Just continually circulated to a
Right.
point where its value will
Yes.
decrease on just naturally itself,
Yeah.
depending on what is
Well,
valued.
not necessarily naturally, because even with currency, there are different types of currency, but the currency that we have today is very specific type of currency known as fiat currency,
Yeah.
meaning it's not backed by anything. It's not backed by gold even. At least when it was backed by
It used
gold,
to. Yeah.
it used to be backed by gold. So it used to be backed by actual money. Gold is a store of value
Mm-hmm.
and it's a set value. It's not going to decrease over time because it's a set thing.
Mm.
It's a very rare item as well. Which, by the way, cryptocurrency and
You
Bitcoin
reading my mind?
are gonna. So they're trying to emulate that
Yeah.
by making it limited, which we'll get into later.
Yeah.
But fiat currency is called fiat because it's by decree, right?
Mm.
Meaning an entity,
Mm-hmm.
the government, actually not even the government, actually
The
this
Federal
private
Reserve.
corporation, which is a private corporation, the Federal Reserve, they've decreed that they will be the arbiters of who will who will have the currency. They will print out the currency, right? And and the way they've designed it is that, so here's why it decreases in value over time. Currency is issued, it's not even a debt-based currency, it's worse than that.
Mm.
Currency is issued for debt but never for interest.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So we got to really let that sink in, because what that means is that collectively, not
Mm-hmm.
individually, but collectively, bankruptcy is built into the system. It's
Yes.
designed to fail. It's designed to crash,
Yes.
right? And that itself is bad enough. That means scarcity is built into the system, right? But to make
Mm-hmm.
it worse, they have designated that the big banks, and the big corporations, which is basically the entities that are closest to the initial issuance of currency,
Yes.
right? The initial printing out. So anyone that's closest to the initial nozzle
What's up,
will
Adam
be the
Plumbing?
richest because they're closest to the initial release, right? And the further
Mm-hmm.
away you're from that initial release, the less value you're going to have. Even if you have the same amount of currency, by the time the currency gets to you, it already has less value, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
designed that way. So not only is it designed to crash, even if we have an equal amount of currency, the value is not equal for everybody.
Yeah.
That's how it's designed because of this principle that is issued for debt but never for interest. So that itself is bad enough. Now, they've also designated that when the economy crashes, as it always will, because it's designed that way, that the big banks and corporations are too big to fail. So
Yeah.
they bail out the big banks, but not the
Yeah.
little guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but that's not the worst part. What happens then is, because everything has crashed, everything is very cheap.
Mm-hmm.
But guess what? The only people who have the big amount of currency because they've been bailed out, only people who can buy everything very cheaply in bulk are
Yeah.
still the big bank and corporations. So they buy everything in bulk and jack the prices up, which sets it up for another crash, because meanwhile the minimum wage hasn't increased in like over 20, 30 years, in decades.
Mm-hmm.
The federal
Yes.
minimum wage is still like what, $7.25? In
Depending on
state
where
by
you are.
state,
Yeah.
well, state by state, they've increased. Like California is $12, but the federal remains the same. Like at the federal level, it
Yeah.
hasn't really changed. So we can't. So there's inflation, but the minimum wage remains the same. So
Mm-hmm.
which sets us up for another crash. That is the problem with having not only a currency based system. That's
A
one
fiat.
problem.
Mm-hmm.
The second big problem. That's the one big problem. The second big problem is the blind spot that both capitalism and communism have, which is that it's a monocurrency system or a
Mm-hmm.
monosystem currency. Basically, it means that every country in the world is forced to rely on one resource, one currency,
Yeah.
right, one medium of exchange, which means, again, scarcity is built into the system. Everyone has to fight for the same resource, right?
Yeah.
So there's a brilliant economist named Elijah who wrote the book New Money for a New World, and I value this book so much. I have it on my wall. I
Mm.
have a cover of the book on my wall, which I've had for the last like 5 years.
I see a wire, but I don't see it too much. But yeah.
Yeah, it says New Money for a New World.
Okay, now I see it.
Yeah, yeah. So he gave a great TED talk called Money Diversity, where he even redefined money as not just a medium of exchange or a store of value, but a community agreement between communities,
Yeah.
right? And similar to a social contract, right?
Okay.
And so he gave the proposal: what if we can solve at least, out of these two big problems, we can solve at least one of them in a very simple way by having a multiple currency system where there is a local currency, local supplemental currency in addition to the national currency. So for every city in the world, suppose there's a local currency.
Yeah.
And it already exists, at least in experimental ways there is, but also in very real ways, even though it's experimental.
Experimental. Mm-hmm.
There's the Baltimore dollar, which is a local currency that can only be used inside Baltimore for the last. They've had it for several years, I believe.
Mm.
Uh, I think they have it in San Francisco too. There's also in Bali, also we have a dual currency system. There's an experimental city in Brazil called Curitiba, which also has a local currency. And
Okay.
in fact, for years, I think Sweden and Switzerland also had local currencies. So
Mm.
it's been proven to work because of that. So even with these small scale experiments, right?
Yeah.
Now, what's brilliant about cryptocurrency is that now we can make it systematic. We can scale it out where now we can make it happen on a practical level instead of just all of these random cryptocurrencies. What
Yeah.
if we can make it systematic by having a local cryptocurrency for every city in the world?
Mm-hmm.
That will solve that problem at least.
Got you. All right, a few questions to you. And then one of the other things to help to clarify to some folks too, when it comes to how money is basically debt and how it just accrues debt is if you look into you can YouTube this. There's a whole setup that teaches you about the Federal Reserve. You can YouTube it. It can be like the truth about Federal Reserve and how money is printed.
Hmm.
But long story short
Yeah,
with that
read the
is the
book,
more money.
The Creature from Jekyll Island. It's a
Yeah.
great book
Yeah.
on this.
For
He also
those who
has a
do
two
not
hour
read,
video on this. Yeah,
there's a video in other
yeah,
forms for you too. But
yeah.
basically what it's saying is say that we have $1 million in circulation. um, that $1 million that we had to print off, there had to be a principal interest that was on top of that. And say that principal interest was 250,000. So technically there would have to be $1,250,000, but we only have physically $1 million in circulation. So we don't have
Hmm.
enough money in circulation to even pay off that principal interest. So what we do is we print more money so we can pay off that principal interest, but in turn, that means that we make even more interest on top of the one we just tried to pay off. So it is a
Hmm.
continued perpetual sense of trying to pay off the original balance, which is unable
Hmm.
to be paid off because you already start off with already being in a negative. So that's what it means when we
Hmm.
talk about more so money and what that creates itself to crash because it's
Hmm.
debt. That's why you have student loan debt, any type of debt in this world. People use that debt to actually to apply for loans and other different cases because they know what money is at the end of the day and how you want to use it.
Yeah, I
Now,
actually even wrote an allegory like a few years ago to help people explain that. Basically, because even before the Federal Reserve, even back in Europe, right? I think
yeah,
around the time of the Renaissance or the Enlightenment period, where even back then, but it was happening on a much smaller scale because
yeah,
let's say that you happen to have a lot of gold, and those were basically the first banks in history, right?
yeah,
Where at first you would have to carry a lot of this gold everywhere you go because at the time the banks were not in one place. They were basically merchants who had a lot of gold that they were carrying around,
Yeah.
right? So, and somebody came up with this brilliant idea. Oh, like what if I don't give out actual gold, but just gave out a little piece of paper,
IOU.
basically an IOU, and that was the first currency,
Mm-hmm.
the first paper currency, right? And then somebody else came up with a brilliant idea, which was to put out an IOU on the IOU, which was interest basically.
Mm-hmm.
So that's basically the history of that. Like,
Yeah. So if you want to loan money from me,
yeah,
for me to make money off of that, I pay you interest. So if you want to get
yeah,
$100 from me, and I say, all right, when you pay me back, you have to pay me 125. I just
hmm,
made $25 off of that initial 100.
hmm,
So if you said you only had 100, pay me back. Now you got to figure out where you're gonna get the other 25 from, and you might have to get from
hmm,
somebody. And you see where that goes. It's a perpetual putting
hmm,
yourself in a hole. I'm not saying that's gonna
yeah,
happen, but just let you know that's how the system is set up. So for the system to continue, there's a certain amount of folks who have to be in extreme debt versus folks who can have all the money, things and stuff paid off. There's no way where nobody in this can be debt free. So then now it starts talking about, okay, and how can you get and take away student loan debt and all these other different debts that are out there? How can you do that? There's a number of reasons that it will not happen, and there's some reasons that it can happen. But what will happen is that it'll start making it seem closer and closer to a different type of system that we don't really like talking about. Not capitalism, but something else.
right. Yeah,
But
exactly. Yeah. So I don't know about Hinduism and Buddhism, which is more of my religions, but there's a reason why the Abrahamic religions like Islam, Judaism, and Christianity, they all
mm-hmm.
have anti-usury laws. So
Yeah,
usury is another term for interest. So it
yeah,
wasn't that they were against money specifically, they were specifically against usury, which is basically
mm-hmm.
the abuse of the system.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because again, a lot of us who grew up in unfortunate places and spots don't have the knowledge to know truly what money is and how to
Hmm.
properly use it.
Yeah.
And what happens, we fall into a lot of the pitfalls that basically puts us into these states of owing things and stuff of that nature. Just know, literally, you're always going to be in some type of state of, quote unquote, debt or owing something because you got your lights, you got all your amenities, you got a car, you got all these different things that are tied to you having to pay stuff. And if you don't have a job in all these different cases, it just piles up, piles up, piles up, and piles up. That's why there's a
Hmm.
such thing as filing for bankruptcy, which is this a whole system in itself to try to help clear off all of that. But I don't know too much on it, so I'm not going to share it all like I do. But
Hmm.
questions to you, Kundan, because and I'm glad you brought up cryptocurrencies because I had that in the back of my mind, and I'm like, yo, there's so
Hmm.
many different ones and how they can be backed, and right now they're quote unquote backed by the U.S. dollar, which now
Hmm.
Bitcoin is also one of them that's being backed. That it substitutes like you buy a Bitcoin, you can have this certain amount in this new
Hmm.
cryptocurrency and stuff of that nature. So it's starting to see like a lot of these currencies are also backing each other up at the same time, whether you get one or the other. Is that how
Hmm.
the two little currency system can be set up, like where you were speaking on earlier? Is that at least an idea of what that looks like?
Yeah, like, and well, that's one way it can work, but it uh doesn't even have to be that way. Like, for example,
Mm.
there is there's an alternative, like similar to the barter system. There is something called a time bank, right?
Okay.
A time bank is, and there's like several local time banks already. That like there's one in Long Beach right now in California, and so a time bank is based on the idea that uh, not everyone has money, but everyone has time, right?
Uh huh.
So, and it solves one major hurdle with trading, right? Which
Mm-hmm.
is that the problem with trading is that uh, we don't all value our skills the same way, the same value.
Yeah.
And we start thinking in terms of fairness, right? What's fair? And also like what you have to give me, I may not want, right? I just may not
Mm-hmm.
want it. Like, So, and that's why that was the whole reason for money and currency coming about in the first place, right? So
Mm.
Time Bank tries to solve it by saying, okay, the reason why it's not working is because it's one-on-one, right? What if we had a collective, a community of people who have basically similar to the social contract, right? Have
Yeah.
agreed to be part of this time bank. So
Yeah.
in that time bank, if I clean your room for an hour, for example, I earn 1 unit of time bank within the collective,
Yeah.
and I can use that 1 unit to say get a massage from another person in the time bank.
Gotcha.
Now, there is a limitation to that because it's local, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there is a solution to that as well, which is to take it to another level, which is to take it online. And basically, there's a website called Simbi.com, which basically has done that, where you can trade services on Simbi, and now you
Mm-hmm.
can even sell products. Actually, you still have to pay in dollars for their. If you sell products, you still have to pay in dollars for their shipping, but
Mm-hmm.
otherwise it's mostly just services, right?
Okay.
And it started off mostly services that you can do online, like coaching or writing or things like that. But now Simbi has merged with the idea of Time Bank, where you can also start local Simbi groups. So on
Mm-hmm.
Simbi, you can trade services, or you can also pay in Simbi currency, which is not cryptocurrency. They're very clear about that. They're
Yeah.
simply like points. And it's basically like a point system. And you get like 25 points in
Yeah.
Simbi just for joining. And then I think you get 100 points. Actually, I think you get 100 points just for joining. And
Mm-hmm.
then you get 25 points for referrals.
Okay.
And then so that gives you a base, right? So it gives you a
Mm-hmm.
choice, and everyone's basically starts with 125. And once you have that base, you can either trade services or you can ask to be paid in Simbi. Like right now, I think I have like 600 Simbi already on it, and there came a point where, for example, I no longer needed to trade services.
Yeah.
For example, twice I paid like 100 Simbi to a photographer to do this amazing professional photo shoot, and it
Yeah.
turns out he used to shoot celebrities in the Philippines,
Mm.
and so the quality is amazing. And I never used U.S. currency for that. I didn't use
Mm-hmm.
cryptocurrency either. So
Yeah.
it's almost like I had doubled my resource
Mm-hmm.
without doubling my work, just by having another alternative.
Yes.
So that's
So,
an example of like my resource being doubled without me having to fight for the same dollar, just because I had this alternative community.
mm, okay.
Yeah,
I see a bit more where you're going with that, but it
yeah,
definitely still took initial input to accrue that.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
So I get you definitely in that. I don't know why, but this is bit going off. But you just reminded me of that concept, but in a flip alternate reality of the movie In Time, which it was had Justin
Oh
Timberlake in
yeah,
them.
yeah.
It just reminded me of that movie of basically you basically only have a certain amount of time to live and stuff, and like going
Mm-hmm.
to banks to try to buy more time like to live and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a whole nother, setup and
Yeah,
and exchange and stuff. But it just in a weird way, like I said, it
yeah.
flipped me on the side to remind me of that. Now, let's get into the whole idea when I'm saying that money talks. Basically,
Mm-hmm.
when I'm meaning that money talks, we talk about basically the value and the power that's behind it. That's why I said the power of the dollar or the power of the currency
Mm-hmm.
that's given, and how depending on how much money, currency, whatever you end up may having, you have power and a lot of influence. So
Mm-hmm.
in this particular case, with money talking, um, do you two feel that the more money that you have, the more options and the more available things are to you with having said money? And that's for anybody too in the
Mm-hmm.
comments as well. Is
Definitely.
Yes. Like
and why is that?
At least to a point, yeah.
Yeah, because that's the common like exchange. You know what I mean? So it's gonna your benefit from it is gonna be like in terms of like numbers, like how Kundan was saying, the time trade thing is locally. So that's
Yeah.
cool. That community, that's your reach. So you can get the things you need, your resources there. But then if you're trying to branch out like farther, like another state or globally, you have more reach if you're going to use what is commonly like the common ground.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the only reason why I say like yeah, like surface level, yeah.
You Kunde?
Yeah, it's funny because I almost feel like in to a certain extent, money can be or is a replacement for relationships and community and tribe. Uh,
Mm.
which is why you notice that billionaires, for example, they tend to skew towards being very sociopathic, right? Where we have
Mm.
like Amazon Jeff Bezos not uh, not caring about their workers. They end up peeing in water bottles because they can't even take bathroom breaks and things like that.
Wow.
Uh, yeah, yeah, that was the thing. And then they even tried to discredit Smalls, who was this black man who was trying to be a whistleblower, and they tried to do a smear campaign against him.
Hmm.
He was trying to unionize, and Jeff Bezos was at the meeting with the big attorney when they were trying to make the smear campaign, and he almost did a racist dog whistle as well, where he was like, "Oh, like
Mm.
no one's gonna listen to this guy. We just make him look like he's mentally ill or something." And especially considering his race as well.
Mm.
And so yeah, it becomes more and more. So it's like I don't know what would be the threshold. Like, is it $100 million, $1 billion that you end up uh, getting to that point, right?
Watch the Forbes list. Just look at the
Yeah,
Forbes list, and we can
yeah,
kind of get somewhat of at least a
yeah,
idea of where that might actually fall. But then that means, yeah, studying behavior, all this other different stuff. But hey, if y'all want to do an observation and do a
right.
whole scientific study,
And
Forbes
yeah, so
list.
like on a smaller example, let's say you get sick, right? Do
Mm-hmm.
you call a friend to get you soup, or do you like call Uber Eats, right? And just use your own money.
Yeah.
That's what I mean, like as almost like a replacement for
Yes.
friendships and community. But at some point, at what point does it become very like cold and impersonal, right?
Yeah.
Where wouldn't you rather have a friend bring you soup, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there needs to be a balance between uh, interrelationships or interdependence with your community, relying on community for your resources, and relying on your own self-sufficiency, which basically in this system is the fiat currency, right?
Mm-hmm. Because I'm an
Yeah,
entrepreneur. I'm a go getter. I go get all that money and do
right,
what I can with it.
right,
Um,
yeah.
yeah. So I mean, and to y'all point, yes, I definitely say that literally the more money you have, the more options and resources and things that you have because of the fact that we're built into the system of capitalism. So literally,
Mhm.
as much as some people, if they don't have their values and their morals and how they stand, anybody has a buying price.
Mhm.
Anybody does.
Yeah.
So you be like, oh, you'll never catch me going to, in my particular case, you'll never catch me going to McDonald's and eating anything from McDonald's ever. And then you just have somebody pull up and be like, okay, but if I gave you $50 million, would you go do it?
Mhm.
And then that's up to you and your judgment, your ethics and things and codes. But money talks in a way where it can be used either for coercion, persuasion, as well as to get folks to be in line of what you're doing. So where I said brings that sense of power. More people are prone to listen to folks who have more money than them versus listen to folks who don't have money or in the same about money bracket as them. And it's because of the fact that what money brings to their whole overall impression as a person. And then in this case, it can be like it don't matter. Not say it don't matter. You can see some of these different behaviors once you get money. That's why I like to say it a lot too. People say it too. I use it as one of them songs I had for my post. I mean, Notorious B.I.G. has it in there. Shoot, more money, more problems. You know, it's like the more money that you end up getting, the more things that end up happening. So there's pros and cons that definitely come with it, but it starts to really, again, like you said, it distance yourself from the human aspect of that. I feel like the more money, things and stuff that you start to make, your value and your idea of what money, connection, other things of that nature start to switch more so from a personal to more of a business. So everything that you do is a transaction. It's just you getting that currency back and forth. It don't matter if it is supposed to help with a connection need when it comes to us being humans. It's more so, okay, I'm feeling lonely right now. I have no friends because I decided to go all the way to the top and make all this money. All right, let me just buy like somebody's time to come over and just like listen to me talk. Or let me go and just do all these other different things since I have the money and the time and the things to do so. So I definitely say yes, that the more money that you have, the more options and things that you're able to do, the more things that you are able to get away with as well. I feel like money also gives you a get out of jail free card. Yes, it's limited depending on your race and pigment, but overall, it also gives you more of a get out of trouble free card because there's a number of people that there's some situations we don't know about celebrities and folks that they just pay people off on the side and you never hear the light of day of them because that's just literally how much money and influence that they're able to have and use. So yeah, money it plays a huge role because of the fact that we give it so much power, being that you said earlier, Kundan, that it is a fiat currency. It's really of nothing. I mean, it's because we give it that perception that it is, and that's all that it is. Even though y'all can look, everybody can go look this up. Y'all can Google it. They have calculators for this. You can go back and trace from 1910 to now how much the dollar was worth then to now where it is, and you're starting to see the slow decline of how powerful the U.S. dollar, at least in this particular case, is. We're not talking about any other currencies, but it starts to show you, is that power really, dwindling down to a point where we see the cryptocurrency and stuff popping up. So I mean, in the sense, I'm answering my own question in a way, but yeah, it's very very telling that you have a lot of options because people respond to that as much as they want to respond to you as a character. But if you're giving them a certain amount of money, oh, you got multiple yes men. You got multiple people just backing you just because, all right, next payday I'm gonna give you 50 G's. And it's just like literally that's what people are doing because they trying to survive. You're already above that. You've already got your basic needs on this pyramid, Maslow's pyramid, hypothetically, is already met. So you're on these other different levels and you're able to just bypass all of that. So when folks are in desperate need of some stuff, you can swoop in and be like, I got this work for you, but this is what you got to end up doing. Are you willing to get this up and do this? And then it's up to you. Again, like I said, everybody has a buying price. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
I want to say me, righteously want to say that I don't have a buying price, but there might be something that just pops up out of nowhere. I don't know what is my buying price, but I know what my morals and my values and where I stand with those things. So when I come across something like that happens, I think it over. But yeah.
Well, it's also the carrot and stick approach, right? Because you can use,
Mm,
yes, you can use money to pay people off, or you can use money to pay goons to intimidate your enemies and your opponents, right? Which really happened with like Harvey Weinstein and Ronan Farrow.
mm,
Ronan Farrow is the son of, interestingly enough, Mia Farrow and Woody Woody, what's his name? The famous director.
Woody Allen?
Woody Allen, yeah. Woody
Okay.
Allen is this creepy guy. Uh, I'm surprised he's not arrested yet. But
Wait,
so
like,
Harvey Harvey Weinstein literally hired black ops to look for dirt against Ronan Farrow, and he might even have tried to use those goons to intimidate him. So
Mm,
that's like a real world example of like that were like really like this could be in a spy novel. Like that should really happen. Like
yes. Did you have something to add, Chris? Because now you just made me bounce off of something I remembered I wanted to talk about too. But do you have anything?
sorry. He also brought. I'm like loving these movie references and or directors. Like that's awesome. I got one more for you. You just gotta
Mm-hmm.
make the right one. You gotta find your Jerry Maguire. Show him some. He said, "Stick with me." Guess what? He came through. He delivered. He delivered. He showed him money. You gotta find.
Basically, I mean, The Godfather. Oh, look at the references in all these movies telling you, bringing about certain money and stuff. But the other thing I wanted to say that has also ruins our system, especially when it comes to politics, is lobbyists. If y'all don't know who lobbyists are and folks who lobby for
yes.
people, they're the ones that fund a lot of the folks and the politicians that we have now. So
Oh,
when
they
you
paint a
fund
narrative
people,
as well. Yeah.
yes. So these are people that, okay, this is what I want to get done. I'm going to give you this big, large amount of money. And when you get in, wherever you get in, whether you a mayor, you a
Mm,
governor, you the president, wherever you get
mm,
in when it comes to that,
yeah.
you gotta address what I want. So if I said I want you to start addressing how the tax for the rich is too high, already number of us already paid you a certain amount of money to do that. That's why, and this is from the brother, as well as I end up saying one of our elders, at least in the black community, from Dr. Claude Anderson. He talks about in his book Powernomics that literally for stuff like that to happen, you really have to buy your politicians, you have to buy your governments and other people, folks, so that you can have your agenda and stuff to be pushed. Because at the end of the day, as much as you can put that vote in, which it comes to show you for me time and time again that the vote is very skewed and is very rigged, that you can
Hmm.
have your, meanings that, yo, I'm going to vote and I'm going to do this particular thing. But at the end of the day, it only has a symbolic value versus how it has a monetary value. The symbolic value does not ever equate to the monetary value because of the fact that as much as symbolism is to us, the American flag and all these different titles that we have, it's not paying the bills. It's not
No,
keeping my light on. It's not putting gas in my tank. It's not putting food in my belly. It can be so many symbols. I could be a diehard American, diehard whatever may end up being. But if you ain't got money for me, and how am I continue? So literally, symbolism is never in this case going to end up having that impact when it comes to money. So buying people off, lobbyists wise, or folks like that within, your states to be able to do so, you got to be able to do that.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Hey, Larry.
Good
Hey,
to see you in here.
hey, what's up, man? I thought I was going to bed, and I guess I'm not.
You
Uh,
got some feedback though, pretty loud.
oh man, my fan is real loud.
I was your fan too. I had a.
Yeah.
That's why I had to switch up my fan too.
Loud.
My fan had went
Okay,
loud too.
hold on. Uh, good now.
You lagging out.
Hmm.
Dang.
There you
Uh
go. Wait a minute. As soon as I turned it off, he
yeah,
went
no, it's
black.
still it's still it's still
No,
pretty
that's him.
loud, my man.
No, that's somebody else now.
Oh, okay, I guess so. All right, yeah. But how you doing, brother? Good to see you. What's the word?
Oh man, I just got back from Green Bay, Wisconsin,
Oh wow.
and I just won R&B Artist of the Year for Dub Season Entertainment, my fourth trophy.
Oh,
Um,
congrats.
so this is
Ooh.
uh, my sixth market that I've won an award in. So
Mm.
cool. Just
Really?
started back teaching school and just I like to stimulating conversations and stuff, man. But I heard you talk about voting. Uh, but it's money talks and it's money the root to all evil. Money is
That's
not
gonna
the
be the
root.
next thing. Don't. I'm. Don't,
Yeah.
Oh,
hold
I'm
on.
sorry.
Hold on. I haven't
Oh,
jumped into the topic
Yeah.
just yet. We got
oh,
a
my
few
bad.
more, and then I was gonna segue. I know. I knew that
Yeah.
was gonna come in, but we were finishing up the convo round. I was saying
Yeah.
how money is talking specifically within politics. That's why I had the voting in there. Is because of the whole idea of lobbyists and folks who pay for the campaigns of presidents and governors and folks like that. They put in
Mm-hmm.
their money so that their particular agenda or their focus is made sure that it is addressed when they get into their office. And it's because of
Oh,
the
I
fact
know.
that they had the money and stuff. So that's what I was talking about.
Oh, yeah.
Oh
That's a
yeah,
good
I
example.
used to work for him. I used to
Mm.
work for one of those candidates. Might be working for somebody else again. Well, I just want the money. I don't really care about the candidates, to be honest with you. Look, man, I'm just being honest because most of them are full of shit, bro. Like,
Mm-hmm.
hmm
it's only a handful of politicians. One I know personally, Mayor Andre Rainey of Peekskill, New York, that does exactly what he says or tries to, and really stands for the people. The other politicians that I have met or have seen, I'm not just a person that watches TV because I don't even watch TV, but I'm out in the community every day. Most of the jobs that I've had have been in the community, and
Mm.
I've seen how they work. I've seen how school board members work.
Yeah.
I've even socialized with a few of them. I, if you're familiar with Governor, I'm not going to say anything bad, but remember Governor Douglas Wilder was the first black governor of the state of Virginia.
Okay.
Uh, I used to actually work at the radio station where Douglas Wilder used to have his show.
Mm.
And I've actually been in a social environment where I've seen Governor Wilder and Marion Barry in Washington, D.C.
Mm.
I've seen places, I mean, he did things for the people, but yeah, he liked the nightlife like anybody else. I don't see them as any different, but I can say those things because I've been around those types of people, being an educator, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying, and being a performer. So I see how the people get down, man.
Yeah.
And to be totally,
hmm
Mm.
Yeah.
to be totally honest, a lot of them are full of shit. I'm just keeping it real.
hmm
Got you.
Oh man.
Oh my God, he lagging again.
Oh, wait a minute. Say that again. I'm sorry.
Nah, I was saying, saying you was circling, you was lagging back again. We was chilling,
Is
but
it
Yeah.
the? I
go ahead.
agree they're full of shit. Is it the people or is it the system itself? Because that is a whole other tangent we can get into. But there's a great book by Gaddafi called The Green Book, which I highly recommend
Yeah.
because basically representative democracy itself is not a real democracy. It's more like a distributed dictatorship where it's basically instead of one single dictator, we have dictatorship of the few, mainly the 100 people in the Senate, the 400 people or so in Congress, and then the president. It's basically distributed, but isn't it ridiculous that 500, basically 500 people are ruling over 300 million people, basically? That's a
Mm.
dictatorship. Instead of one person, it's 500 people dictating people.
You know what you're talking about? Ashok. How do you pronounce your name?
Kundan. Kundan is my real name. Kakashik is
Kundu.
the,
Okay.
yeah.
Kundu. Okay. You know that you're talking about the Trilateral Commission, right? Am I correct?
What's the Trilateral Commission?
It's I forget the book's name, but they talked about a group that was started. All this Illuminati stuff that you hear, the commercialism and all that. There was a group of 12 men, white, that started something called the Trilateral Commission in 1776, and they all had a plan to do exactly what you talked about. Have the world under a dictatorship by taking over certain countries, certain people,
Oh,
Oh, by David
and
Rockefeller.
oh,
You talking about like
oh yeah.
the
No, I'm
13
not.
families and things of that
Oh
nature?
yeah, no, I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about specific people. I'm talking about
no, and,
principles. I'm talking about it doesn't matter which country it is, who it is. It doesn't matter how it is. It's like in any even in other countries, any
yeah,
system where there's even a parliamentary democracy, any system where a few. I'm talking about systems rather than people. So
Yeah.
it's not about who did it. It's about it doesn't matter who did it. It's like any system where only 500 people are supposedly representing 300 million, but really ruling over them is
that's
not
a
a real
derivative of
democracy.
that.
It's not a direct democracy. So the book I'm talking about is
That's a
this one. It's
derivative.
called the Green Book. It's
I
by
think I heard of
Gaddafi.
that.
Yes, so it's like Gaddafi, who the U.S. government also killed because he was trying to reveal the truth. So
That's
that's a
And,
whole
a
other thing as
and
well.
start a new
that's a
currency
derivative.
for particularly Africa,
Mm-hmm.
correct? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
that's a derivative of that. That's why I brought that up.
Oh,
And
okay.
what a lot of people don't understand is, I know this is an unpopular view, and I'm gonna tighten it up because I want to hear what Sis got to say. You got to say, capitalism, if you think about it, is nothing but a well-dressed form of communism. Think, marinate on what I just said. You study communism, you study socialism, you study the different isms of government. If you look at capitalism, you notice it's only a handful of billionaires, really. And we're just
Mm-hmm.
talking about America alone.
1%.
Yeah.
1%. Yeah.
And it's a certain percentage of millionaires, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it that you have way more under the poverty line, even now? You know how they say the breaking down of the middle class?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now you got the middle class shrinking now. So that helps keep the billionaires that we have afloat. And the
Mm-hmm.
millionaires that are getting into, that's even more. The more poor people you have, the more rich people are going to come up.
Mm-hmm.
When they say the rich is going to get richer and the poor get poor, the more you're out of a job, or the more they can have you working for slave labor, the more they can pocket the money. So if you're making if you're supposed to make $50,000 a year at your job, technically, you have certain states where they're only paying teachers barely $30,000 a year to start. But your politicians can make 90 to 100,000. You ever notice that? A teacher to me should make 80 to, I mean, they can in some states. In New York, they can. But a teacher all across the board should get paid just as much as a politician because they're
Mm-hmm.
educating young people to be politicians and police officers and governors and all of that. So why aren't they making that amount?
Mm-hmm.
So the more and less they make, the more, the less they make, the more that they can take. So communism is the same way, and the difference is communism, everybody has to get the same thing, except for the
Mm-hmm.
government.
Yeah.
They have to
There's
keep
a term for
everybody
this.
leveled up.
There's a term for
Yeah.
this which I like. It's capitalism for the poor, communism for the rich, or socialism for the rich.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, it's like reverse communism, where uh, it's a welfare state for the rich, where it's funded by the poor and middle class. We're literally subsidizing their life, and that's why the big banks and corporations keep getting built out. We're bailing them out really because the money really ultimately comes from us. So it's a welfare state for the rich, provided by the poor.
Yes.
None.
As well as
Yeah.
I've said it before, and I'm going to continue to say it, and y'all can look at it too from physical aspect as well as just that set down. Um, Capitalism is the biggest pyramid scheme in the world. It's the biggest
Mm-hmm.
pyramid scheme in the world. And the reason why I say that is because of the fact that we just talked about it. 1% versus the whole 99%, the whole, Occupy Wall Street, on top of, if you've ever looked at a multi-level marketing type of setup, you'll see that even their setup is seen to be a pyramid scheme because of the fact that what shape do they make at the end of the day? I know a lot of corporations have those hierarchicals up here, front, down there, and that's how it's set up. But it's to a point to show you that for you, I make money off of you working on top of what you working, so then I get commissions from the lowest person at the bottom that puts more money in my pocket. So I start off with an initial payment of like $100,000, but if I bring in and I have like 4 or 5 workers under me, I get 20% of what they make. On top of they get have to pay off their taxes and things of that nature. So you have this whole setup of, like you said, we're basically funding the rich and we're funding those that are on top of us, which creates this initial pyramid,
Yep.
at least in my case, pyramid scheme. I was gonna tell the brother too, I hear all the background noise with that too. But
That's what I was saying earlier too. The people closest to the initial printing out of the currency, they're the
yes.
only people who benefit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because in part, everybody can't win. Because if everybody can win, guess what? Then there's no such thing as capitalism. We can't call it capitalism, because what capitalism is, you capitalize off of others. Somebody has to be ahead of the other person for them to be able to be on top. We won't have no differentiation between that. Brother, I don't know what's going on, but you got some background going on in there, Laurie. I don't know
Uh,
what that is.
I'm gonna come back in and come out, but I'm gonna watch right quick. Let me handle something. All right,
All right,
I'll
for
come
sure,
back
for
in.
sure.
All right.
Handle it. So y'all, overall,
Yeah.
money
Yet,
definitely has a lot of say so and stuff, and it just has, in any way, shape, or form that we have in the system and stuff where we live, it plays a part. You want to go outside and go to the park and go get something to eat? You got enough money for it? You got enough money in gas? So it's a part of our daily decision making. And right now, I'll say this, and then we'll move on to the next topic. But even right now, as the state, in the current state that we're in right now too, is for folks who are, you can say, not saying resistant, but have chosen to either take the shot, or not take the shot. That affects their livelihood now, and it's either to their benefit or to their detriment. And once again, all of those come with those safety and risks. But ultimately, I say yes, money talks. It talks very loudly, but be careful of how you use your money to talk, because it can also backfire on you. But with that, if y'all have anything else, we can transition over to the last topic and how that all ties in together with this last topic.
Yeah, you were talking about capital earlier, right? There's
Mm-hmm.
another aspect of money and currency that I wanted to add, which we haven't talked about. So I talked about the two big problems, right? Which is currencies issued for debt but never for interest. There's
Mm-hmm.
only one type of currency for every country in the world, which creates a monopoly, right? The
Mm-hmm.
monocurrency. There's a third problem, which is actually related to capital and capitalism itself, and it's actually how it ties into uh, racism, sexism, ableism, classism, etc., right?
Hmm.
Where basically what people call the so-called white privilege and male privilege or straight privilege.
Yes.
Another way to think about it that's easier to understand is to think of it in terms of actual capital, where so-called white privilege is actually racial capital. So-called
Hmm.
male privilege is actually gender capital. So-called cis straight privilege is actually literally another form of capital. The reason why I say this is because there are certain places in the world, for example, certain regions in China, where if you are a white man, you can get paid like 5 or 6 figures just for being a white man in a suit. That's it. You
Oh yeah,
just
you did
sit
talk
there.
about. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you just sit there, wear a suit, and it gives the company meetings, corporate meetings, when they're trying to make a deal with another company, credibility just because you look white and male. So it's literally capital for you if you're in that bracket, if you're white and male. That's why I'm calling it literally capital. And this
Social
is why,
mobility.
yeah, this is why there are people who, who can white men who can go travel around the world with very little money, and they, this is where survivorship bias comes into well, and then they start giving these TED talks where they say, oh, if you can do it, if I can do it, you can do it. No, you are able to do it because everywhere in the world, white supremacy is global, and white people are still seen, even a mediocre white man is seen as like the greatest person in the world. If you go to Southeast Asia, where I'm from, for example, like you'll get a home to stay in, like just because they want to impress you, like literally, like that's how it works. So it's literally capital, and so that's another aspect to be aware of. Where this is where it ties in to things like white supremacy, systemic racism, sexism, etc., ableism as well. Also, if you're able-bodied, that itself is a form of capital as well. Right.
Yeah. All these isms. Yes, y'all.
Mm-hmm.
But with that, transition over into the last topic for tonight, y'all.
Yeah.
Anybody answer this, you can put it, clip it, do whatever you want with it. But lastly, we're going to talk about, is money the root of all evil? If it's
Mm-hmm.
not, why? If it is, why? So, let's start with that. Either one of you, if you want to go, is money the root of all evil?
Well, some people say that the actual quote in the Bible is actually the love of money is the root of all evil.
But again, we play telephone. So sometimes the message
Yeah.
does not get relayed the way that it needs to.
Yeah. I
So
would
that's
say
mm-hmm,
usury specifically is the root of all evil, if you want to, put it in that way.
mm-hmm,
I don't think any particular thing is the root of all evil, but if you want to say something along those lines, it would be more accurate to say usury is the root of all evil and be very specific and clear
why
rather
is
than
that?
just money. Because usury is what I explained earlier. It's basically interest, right?
Mm-hmm,
Interest is literally uh, creating something out of thin air that can never be backed by any actual thing.
mm-hmm,
That means if it's not backed by any actual thing, it has to be backed by force. Because what is another term for fiat? It's decree. Decree means force. Now, it's not overt because for the most part, there is a so-called social contract that I said,
mm-hmm,
but there is a covert theme that ultimately, if you break that social contract, it will be uh, that the usury laws will be backed by guns and weapons. The state police, the state army, the state military. At first, it will be backed by the state courts, so it will be backed
mm-hmm,
legally and politically. But if that breaks down, it will be backed by the state military,
mm,
right? So it's not backed by gold, right?
no,
So it means, but it has to be backed by something, and what it is backed by is violence with guns.
hmm, mm.
Inception, the way you broke it down, is like, oh yeah.
Scarface. Chris, since we throwing movies out there, I'm just threw
Yeah,
Scarface out there, but yeah.
him throwing out Little Mermaid because that's what it is. She violated the
Mm,
contract, and there was consequences, right?
Mhm.
yeah,
There you go. I don't
but
think.
yeah,
I don't think it's
you gotta hear you. You gotta come on. They can't hear you. Let them know.
hear me. I'm like yelling.
Yes. Speaking of movies, it almost reminds me of like I really felt this when I watched this. It's a movie in black and white, but it was made in modern times, but it's set in olden times. It's black and white about basically it's on Netflix. I forgot the name, but it's
Mm,
basically about this lesbian like couple who at first were like hiding their relationship, right?
mm,
And but throughout the movie, like at least during the first half, there is this there's a covert violence against them where there is a sense that they're not supposed to be doing that, right?
yeah.
And and so they do this in hiding and stuff like that. In fact, one of their the lesbians even take on a male lover, and I think she even has a baby or something to pretend to be straight and fit in and stuff like that, right? But there's almost like a theme that even though like at first nothing happens to the couple, that if they were overt with their lesbianism, if they became overt, that the violence would be overt as well. There's like a tension in the air even from the beginning of the movie, right? And then eventually in the like a second half of the movie, they are like attacked physically.
Spoilers for
Yes,
everybody who's seeing this. We don't know what it is.
yeah.
Sorry, spoilers. It's too
I don't
late,
even
but
know the name of the movie, but they are attacked physically, and that's how you know that again it is backed by violence, where these laws, well, even though people pretend to be civil, even though at first it's like microaggressions, like staring at them and things like that, in reality is well understood by everyone that ultimately the rules will be backed by violence, right?
yeah,
And I saw
yeah,
that like most powerfully in that movie, like.
yeah. And adding to your point on top of that too, that goes to show you when it comes to methods of, you know, revolting or, protesting and doing other things of that sort, marching and things of
Mm-hmm.
that nature. Its effectiveness, at least in my particular case, is not as powerful as hitting people in their pockets
Mm-hmm.
or threatening, yes,
Yeah.
that instance of violence. So those
Mm-hmm.
two, honestly, if you can see throughout history, have shown to be more of an effect versus not only just marching and doing it in nonviolent. Not saying that is, less than. It is a strategy. It is an option, but you seem to get a lot more better results if you withheld using your money, using a certain service, and not financially backing something, as well as, oh, you're not going to do this for, all right, then we're going to show up at your house. See what happens when we show up at your house. You're not
Mm-hmm.
going to like it when we show up there. And
Mm-hmm.
that instance of those two things, add to how powerful,
Right.
that root of backing yourself up when it comes to not only the
Yeah.
instance of,
But
money and
also
protection.
the irony is it is cheaper to control a population with currency or the lack of currency, like playing those two games, right?
Yes.
Uh, than to control a population with violence,
Mm-hmm.
because conquest is easy. What's difficult is operations management, and
Mm-hmm.
operations management is done via narrative warfare, the social contract plus currency, right? But ultimately, all of it is backed by violence.
Yes.
Found, but it is cheaper over the long term to have violence be the last resort. So that's why
Mm.
the system works the way it does. Right?
There it is. Now, Chris, to still follow up before I go into my part with it too is I didn't get to hear much of it again. So in your case, is money the root of all evil?
No, I don't think
Mm.
it's a means. It's just a tool.
Yes.
Just a tool. Money has nothing really to do with it. Like it says, it's the consequences.
Mm-hmm.
It's the consequences that are laid out by deciding. You
Yeah.
know, those consequences are. So
Yes.
it's all in. It's weird because it ties into a little bit into intent. You know what I
Yes.
mean?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, full intention. You know,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, using that tool to get whatever response, whatever reaction, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, it's I believe those are the formulas for like evil itself. You know what I mean?
I feel that. Yes.
It's outside of whatever tool. Anything, if it's with malice,
Mm-hmm.
it's not that tool that's being used. It's that person, what they're trying to do, um, their goals. Their,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Mm.
that's just my people in general. I don't think that
Yeah.
anything in anime cannot be evil. I think evil is like a living, or not living, but it is like it's like it's something, you know. It's
Hmm.
not. I don't think living is right because it doesn't. I don't know.
I kind of see where you're going.
Yeah, it's out there, and it doesn't necessarily. I guess it show itself through. I think more so again through actions, through
Yes.
intent, movement,
Hmm.
not in an object. You know,
Yes.
you trip over the chair that evil that means fall. Things can't
Yes.
have. I don't know. Inanimate objects can't have a description from like it's a good, evil. You know, that's just
Yes.
I didn't articulate that well, but
No, I get you. I definitely get where you're going with it. I got you.
yeah.
So to add on to top of your thing, basically, I agree with both of you. And the reason why I put is money the root of all evil is because of the fact that people miss out on that part, the intention. Because money itself, like you said, it's a resource. Money is not getting up and smacking you in the face. Money's not coming to your house, knocking on the door, saying, "Hey, yo, stop using me." Money is not that. It's not doing that. It's the person, it's the intention and things behind it that is. So that's why when I think of stuff like this, I always go back to me thinking of the law of neutrality. Everything in this life, especially, is neutral. It either becomes good, bad, this, that, and different until somebody puts their energy and their intention into it. So it can be used for either good or bad, depending on the person and their intention. So I agree with you on that, 1,000%. Now, yes, when it comes to money is the root of all evil. It definitely, to me, it definitely is not. It will never end up being. It will always end up going back to that person, their behaviors, and again, like you said, their actions and how they end up using it. But we miss out on this so much because of the fact that people read and misinterpret things because I put it this way and stated this way on purpose because I don't know how many times I've heard people say this statement that money is the root of all evil without putting the other specific pieces to it. So that's why I left it that way, is because I've just known to hear that so much. And I'm always thinking, I'm like, money is the root of all evil. Like, so the like saying also the love of money is the root of all evil. So like, if you love money so much, like, you're evil. So money's not evil itself, but you thinking and loving and doing that is what makes you evil. But that part is not addressed. So we get so caught into the fact that, shoot, if you're a money grabber, you going out here and getting money and stuff, yo, that's of the devil. Not, that's more on a religious aspect and stuff, because we already started with that whole idea of, the love of money is the root of all evil from the Bible. But here, it just doesn't get to show you how it really takes root within life. It's not, like I said, money is not walking around trying to do drive-bys on people. Money's not walking around trying to be like, hey, yo, man, hey, pull up and watch what's going to happen. Ain't none of that is going on. It's the people who are questioning and trying to get these things is what ends up happening. And that whole that Kundan was talking about with being able to use the scarcity as well as the abundance of money in there is where people have to start making their, you know, decisions on whether how they're going to go about getting this bread, getting the bag, acquiring the money so that they can continue to live the lifestyle that they live. So now this starts getting into now how money can be used to fuel people's lifestyles. And what are people's lifestyles? It's depending on what they choose and what they want to end up doing. You can live a lifestyle just, sex, drugs, and money, and you're using money to perpetuate and continue that, which it can lead you down to a road of destruction. Or you can do the opposite, use it to be more altruistic, give money to other folks and be able to build up a community and stuff like that. Shouts out to Nipsey trying to buy back the block. But in my perspective, when it comes to this whole root of evil and things and stuff like that too, we have to, it's really hard to be like, what do we see as a necessary, evil? What is evil in itself? So I have the definition. Let's go ahead and look and see what this definition about. Break that down a little bit. Continue on a little bit more, and then we'll get to do our closing remarks. Um, but again, from Webster's dictionary, y'all, evil says morally reprehensible, sinful, wicked, an evil impulse arising from actual or imputed bad behavior or conduct, a person of evil reputation. There's an archaic definition, which basically means it's not used anymore. It's an old definition. Inferior. Interesting. Um, yeah. Another one, causing discomfort or repulsion.
Okay.
So offensive. Disagreeable. Causing harm. Marked by misfortune. Unlucky.
Oh, that one's very abstract.
Right?
Hmm.
Marked by misfortune, unlucky.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So like, bad luck is
Mm.
evil. Like, but
but it's the spectrum. Yeah.
Yeah.
yes.
That also makes
What's
me
going
think
on,
about
Dallas?
the Hey Dallas. Makes me think about the good evil false binary as well, right? I've written
Mm-hmm.
a poem about it where basically I was saying that we're actually a mixture of being both flawed and having, good qualities where I don't think maybe except 0.0001% of the population who are serial killers or complete psychopaths, that I think no one is pure evil. Like I think that
Mm-hmm.
we're all a mixture of being flawed human beings with some good qualities and some beneficial qualities.
Yeah.
And we're ever growing. We're also not static beings. We're
Mm-hmm.
dynamic, ever changing, ever growing people. Like there's no like the you and the me today is totally different from the you and me even a year ago, right?
Yeah.
That's so so yeah, so even this idea of calling it the root of all evil is like buying into that false binary as
Yeah.
well. And which is which is why I like that in in Hinduism, in some Hindu regions, because we're a pluralism is different in every region.
Yeah.
There are some Hindu stories where the goddess of wealth, Lakshmi, uh, also has a sister,
Mm.
and on the surface she's known as the goddess of bad luck, but actually she's the goddess of discernment. She's a
Mm-hmm.
goddess of caution against greed and lust and overconsumption. So people in those regions, um, they advise you that if you petition Lakshmi, you should also petition Lakshmi to
Yeah.
prevent that greed and lust and all avarice and all that. And it
Mm-hmm.
makes sense because if you think about it, like the statistics about 80% of lotto winners lose all their money in 3 years or less, right? Or they become even
Mm.
more poor than they were before,
Four.
right?
Yep.
Because they overspend, overgive, they they buy houses they can't afford, all of these things, and they end up losing all of them because they can't handle unearned money too fast, too much.
Yeah.
They haven't built the consciousness, right, to
Mm-hmm.
handle it, right? So yes, good intentions, but also impact, and also like you have to increase your ability to even handle that much amount of money, right?
Yeah.
Precisely because of programming like this, the money is the root of all evil, but
Yeah.
also any other programming that you grew up with, right?
Yep.
That money is dirty, money is dangerous, whatever it is, right? Like in my case, it was uh, money can be gone anytime, right?
Yes.
So, like I mentioned before. So I think that's important to be aware of too, and like what is your beliefs about money and what is your
Mm-hmm.
consciousness around money and your ability to handle, like what is almost like your subconscious upper limits or threshold that you
Yes.
think you can handle, right? Like
Hmm.
I've even done random surveys of people when I did my money webinar where I was like, at what threshold do you start feeling uncomfortable that you start to think you have too much money? And surprisingly,
Mm.
for a lot of people, it's a low amount, like $10,000 a month starts feeling like too much for some people.
Yeah.
And it's really nothing considering the inflation and how much, like in LA, like 3,000 itself is how much you pay rent, right? Yeah,
Yeah. Depend. It really depended on where, but yes.
yeah, yeah.
The other thing I wanted to add on top of that
Like,
is when we're speaking of like evil and again these binaries, this is more so that folks who are in this so they can have an idea of where we're going with it, but letting them know that
mm-hmm,
there's much more than what we're just seeing just only through this or that, this lens and that
mm-hmm,
lens. But just to start the combo so we can have a premise of where to go, this is what it is. Evil in itself, to me, since we talk about it, I say it a lot that we are not this body. We are energy, frequency, vibration, and all of that beyond. So for me, evil in itself is a particular energy. Whether you want to call it
mm-hmm,
a high or a low vibration, depending on your
mm-hmm,
your beliefs, your thoughts, and what you learn. But energy, evil is a particular energy. It's a
mm-hmm,
bad vibe or things that you end up getting. And the more that you
mm-hmm,
tap into it, again, we talk about again the dark and the light, which is something I'm going to
mm-hmm,
be talking about as a topic later on in the series too. But it gets to a point of we, like you said, we see it in one way and our belief of it is this one way, so then we have it stuck in that only way that it is.
mm-hmm,
So we talk about these phrases and these things and these set ways because is what we've learned, and we haven't broken
mm-hmm,
past just knowing that it's just not what it is, it's also what you make of it. So if you're just sitting there and you're just like, oh, that's just that, that's all it is, instead of you making it and be like, you know what, like, why is it really that? And start going further into questioning more about what it really is, then you start to have a better understanding that ultimately a lot of this stuff altogether, they coexist for a reason. Is for you to know the opposites of what it is on each other side of a multiple spectrum of things. But with this whole money being the root of all evil, again, it adds in the behaviors, the actions, the thought, and the intention behind it. So money in itself has been seen to be in some of the most, evil actions as as transactions, like how the dark web, you know, child trafficking, all these other different things that we don't necessarily talk about. Like money is being used as those transactions without looking at the fact that those transactions itself and those actions of what they're doing is really what you want to look at, that is more of the evil or the whatever dark portion of it and not the money itself. So then it
mm-hmm,
starts to beg to also ask the question, this is a question I want to have to, if money was not a thing, besides not going back to bartering, you know what would end up being the particular evil then? If this is, again, we're going off of the premise that money the root of all evil. Of course there's other different
mm-hmm,
things, but if money was not in the picture, then what would end up being that evil?
mm-hmm. I think it would be just like um, something along the lines of narrative warfare that I keep talking about, just manipulation and trickery and
Mm,
uh, things like that. It's uh, yeah. I was just reading a passage from. I actually even did an IG reel on the passage from the book "The Space Between Worlds,"
mm,
and I won't read the passage, but just to summarize, basically, uh, there's a story about a larger country that invaded a smaller country, and they massacred all these people, right?
mm,
And then there were survivors, and in front of the survivors, with their with the blood still on the swords and the sickles, they looked at the survivors, and literally in front of all the bodies that they killed, they
mm,
denied that and they did anything,
hmm,
and nobody dared to argue against them. Like, and then there's a conversation in the book where uh, somebody's father or grandfather said, that is true power, and this character asked the grandson, "Is that really true power?" And he looked at her and said, "No, it's not true power. It's just blood magic, right?"
Mm.
And that to me, like that, it may be blood magic, it may be true power, whatever they want to call it. But to me, like that is a greater level of violence than the actual killing of people,
Mm.
because it's emotional and mental abuse. And even though in the book, for the sake of the drama, she gave such an extreme example and a dramatic example,
Yeah.
it's happening all the time, like with the denial of the impact of slavery, for example, or the denial of even the Tulsa massacre, right?
Yes.
Where
Mm-hmm.
they even pretended that Thomas Jefferson had a romantic relationship with his mistress. No, he raped his own slave. That's what happened, right? And they've created a level of violence where it's only in recent years and decades that we've even dared to to challenge the lies. And so to me, deception and trickery and manipulation
Mm.
would be like a greater evil if money wasn't around.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I was gonna definitely say, in terms of saying that, it would make me throw in human nature. And we
Mm,
would have to really want to start talking about what then is, humans inherently evil, and that's that whole setup. I know there's like folks, and I don't necessarily what title to give them, but there's people who have argued that literally human nature is inherently evil, and others have said that it's
mm,
inherently good and all of this. But if money was not in that particular case, I would throw it right back on there as the individual. Since now we're the ones. See, so in
mm,
this particular case, when we talk about money talks and how money's not really backed up by anything, ultimately, in our particular case, we back up money. So then when money's gone,
mm,
guess what? We have to be accountable for ourselves. So now the evil is not coming from the money, it's coming from literally particularly the self, from you, the
exactly.
actions and how you do this. So
Mm,
ultimately, is money the root of all evil? Between us, me, Kundan,
mm,
and Chris, we say no. It is basically the usury, it is the intention, and it's the person behind it and how they use the money is what we would consider quote unquote evil, or that energy.
mm,
Now, for those
mm,
who agree, disagree, again, put your thoughts and say why you think it is the root of all evil, and you just throw it there in the comments or save it for later. But ultimately, that is, at least we have a consensus on that between us. It's that it's not the money itself, but it is the person, the actions, and the usury behind it.
mhm.
And with that, we're gonna get ready to go ahead and close down. But is there any
Shall
final
I?
thoughts that you have before we do,
Uh,
Kundan?
I just want to read my short story, it's a macro story on money, the allegory
Please do. All
about.
right,
Yeah. All right. There was once a kingdom where
Nate the
people
Great.
could, an allegory about our currency system. There
Mm-hmm.
was once a kingdom where people could trade for resources in gold, silver, and art. In this kingdom, more than half the population grew their own foods inside large, diverse, edible forests. The other half hunted food and foraged among the plants in the forest.
Mm.
Then a power-hungry wizard decided to tell the king that he could create a better system by having everybody grow only one kind of food in large plots of land that they could trade for in just gold. He advised the king to do this so that gold, the primary currency of the palace, would become more valuable, and
Hmm.
that it would be so much more efficient and easy for the people if they could just sit among plots of land with easy access to this food without struggling so much to hunt and forage. At this point, the fools started to crack up. Ha 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 ha. but the wizard silently sets a shut up spell to the fool.
Hmm.
So the king implemented this plan. Then the treasurer had an even more cunning idea. So much later, he plotted with the wizard to tell the king that he didn't even need to trade in gold, but simply write an IOU on pieces of paper because the people trusted the king and the palace. He
Hmm.
then asked for a network of buildings called banks with bankers to issue these. The fool started dancing and jumping up and down and waving his hands at this point, but no one understood him.
Hmm. And it sums it right there, y'all. You
Yeah.
know, of really where it is. And shouts out to the brother Nate the Great. If y'all know Nate the Great, this man holds it down too on the microphone out there in the NYC and beyonds over there, if I am correct. But I want to get his comments in here too, and then I get my last comments and then wrap up. So
Mm-hmm.
the brother said it's the person behind the money so it can be a route to evil. Yes, I definitely agree, brother. That's what we were taking
Mm-hmm.
it earlier, talking about
Yeah.
how literally, like we said, it's the person and the actions rather than the money itself, because I see it in the law of neutrality, which basically means that everything is neutral until you put your intention behind it, which rather makes it these binaries of good and evil and however we want to progress with it. So I'm with you. It
Mm-hmm.
creates a root. Yes, we're all rooted into some fabric of this life, what we call life.
Mm-hmm.
We're all rooted in some way, shape, or form. So
Mm-hmm.
I definitely agree with that there. I said it can
I
corrupt you into
think
going back
it's the
something and feeding that something negative that's detrimental to your life. Yes, we were speaking about earlier too. Man, I mean, you came in, brother, but yeah, we've gotten to at least get on it a little bit more. But I appreciative still of your comments in here.
I think it's the person and the system, and maybe at some
Mm,
point, even though the system is also created by individuals, I think there comes a point where it's almost like the system has its own consciousness that influences people
mm,
to behave in certain ways, almost like the chicken or the egg question. Like if you look up things like the Zimbardo Stanford Prison Experiment, Milgram's electric shock experiment, things like that.
Skinner's
Um,
box and things of that
yeah,
nature.
yeah.
Okay.
Or even like
Okay.
at the local park where, in Tustin, where there used to be a lot of fights at the local park and people were fighting all the time at the squash
Mm,
court. And the city must have got tired of it.
yeah.
Now, the more expensive solution might have been to hire, psychologists and psychiatrists to talk to all these people one on one, right?
Yeah.
But instead, to change their behavior at the individual level, right?
Yeah.
But what the city did instead, which was in a way I think more efficient and more long term, was they destroyed the squash court and they replaced it with an outdoor free gym in the park
Hmm.
that uses your own body weight to exercise resistance training.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it's all fixed to the ground with heavy iron and things like that.
Yes.
So no one can steal it and things like that. And so it basically like replaced on a systemic level, right? Structural level, it replaced the behavior where people now go there to exercise rather than to fight,
Yeah.
you know. And so that's an example of a structural solution where that doesn't
Mm-hmm.
even on that small scale where I
Mm-hmm.
haven't seen like the cops called to the park in several years. Like,
See, there it is. You know, little small things, man, but
yeah.
that goes into how being able to address these certain situations and coming up with solutions. I
Mm-hmm.
know we talk about a lot of these different things. Most
Mm-hmm.
of the times we do have solutions to the topics and stuff that we come up with, but ultimately
Mm-hmm.
this one here, y'all, it's really on you in this particular
Mm-hmm.
case and how you use your money, whether if you're going to use it to help
Mm-hmm.
uplift and to help build versus you're going to use it to destroy, whether if it's your own life
Mm-hmm.
of destruction or if it's to also put others in some type of destructive lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
But with that, y'all, in closing, when it comes to current events and things happening around the world, please make sure that you take the time to be informed so that you can make the decisions that you need to keep yourself safe, your family safe, and all of those around you that you value safe and informed. Because at the end of the day, when someone is informed, when there's an informed populace and a group of people, we can better move accordingly to effectively solve problems. Second, shouts out to you, Beth. Good to see you in here, Beverly. Good to see you. Second, when it comes to money talks, we know how powerful money is when it comes to the perceived value and how much we put into it. Even though it is a currency that is not backed by anything, y'all can look this up. We value those who have so much power, celebrities, politicians, presidents, and those who have this money. And at the end of the day, if you're down and out and you're not able to provide what you need for other people and other folks, you have a price. And that's where it's going to test your values, your virtues, and all these different things. So money can talk on multiple levels to either persuade, to uplift and help, or again, to do harm. And lastly, is money the root of all evil? No, it can be a part of that root. But ultimately, it's the person behind the money using that, which is in that energy and state of quote unquote evil. So again, put the intentions out there that you want and use it again, either to your benefit or to your detriment. But with that, y'all, I've been your brother A.D.V.I.S. This has been Kundan. Shouts out to Chris and everyone that's came over here on the show and all the time. Appreciate you so much. And for those who'll be watching this later on Instagram or YouTube, if you're on YouTube, don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for your boy, because you'll have more content like this coming in your inbox. And we on that road to 1,000 subscribers and beyond. So please help your brother out. Do what you can. Drop a subscribe and a like, and it works. As well as follow Kundan on YouTube as well as here on Instagram. If you can tap in there, you can see it. Akashic, I'm not going to be able to say the whole thing. If you want to, you can. But with all of that, y'all, we appreciate you, appreciate your time. We'll see y'all next Wednesday for another topic and another episode of What's the Word Wednesday. But until then, stay healthy, stay informed, and keep pushing to be a better version of yourself every day. All right. Peace and love. Until next time, we out.